Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name's Emily Metzger. I'm one of the two academic advisors for undergraduates here in the Aerospace and Ocean Engineering department. We're really excited to have you guys with us tonight to learn a little bit more about our department and about what it's like to study aerospace and ocean engineering at VT. We're lucky to have four current AOE ambassadors. They're current students in our department who are here to answer your questions and share some of their knowledge about being an engineering student with us, with all of you. So to get started, we're going to go around and basically we're going to have our current students introduce themselves. I have a short video we're going to be playing to give you a little introduction to our department and to what it's like being part of it. And then we'll jump into Q&A from there. And again, thanks for joining us. So Raj, do you want to go next, introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone, my name's Raj. I'm currently a junior and I'm doing both aerospace and ocean engineering, so I am a double major. And I've had internships, research experience, and I've been on a design team. So almost any questions you guys have, if you guys want to ask them, I can help answer them.
I guess I'll go next. Hey everyone, my name's Ian. I'm a junior in aerospace engineering. A couple things about me. I have over a year of co-op experience under my belt, working at the National Air and Space Intelligence Center in Dayton, Ohio. Fun fact: I'm a triplet, so a lot of people enjoy that one. But yeah, if you have any questions about co-ops or classes or anything like that, we're here to help.
Hey y'all, I am Catherine Whittick. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. I am a junior studying ocean engineering. Similar to Raj, I have had intern experience. I am on a design team. I'm in a bunch of engineering clubs, so I can kind of cover a lot of the bases.
I'm Nathan. I'm a junior in aero engineering as well, and I've done a few different design teams and clubs here, though I have yet to get an internship because of COVID last year.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to our panelists for being here. And again, as you can see, these students are going to be able to answer a lot of questions that you might have. If you have additional questions after our webinar that you're not able to get answered today, we also do have a lot of resources for prospective students on our website. And I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen in just a moment to take you to our prospective student page on the website. I'll show you where to find some resources, and then we're going to go ahead and play a short video for you to introduce you to our department. All right, so here we are. This is our webpage for prospective students interested in the Aerospace and Ocean Engineering department. If you go ahead and scroll down on this page, you'll find quite a bit of resources for students that you can actually explore virtually. So we actually have several videos that are available here. We're going to play a short one that one of our students made last spring for you guys. But then I also wanted to point out that if you are interested in chatting with a current student more in the future, we have a chat with an AOE ambassador feature here as well. So if you feel like you'd like more conversation one-on-one with an AOE ambassador, this is a Google form you can fill out and we can connect to you to be able to have a further conversation later.
Hi everyone, my name is Raven Waters. I'm a junior in aerospace engineering and I truly love it here at Tech. And I love aerospace engineering because we have awesome opportunities. To start off with, we'll just talk about what aerospace engineering is and what we do and what our department is about. So first, we are the Department of Aerospace and Ocean Engineering because it is combined, and that is partly because we study the same things for the first 2.5 years of our studies, all the way up until you get to compressible versus incompressible flow. So in aerospace engineering, we cover aerodynamics, we cover propulsion, we cover electrical systems of aircraft and spacecraft. We also have our space engineering track. We have our systems track. So we pretty much cover everything that has to do with an aircraft or a spacecraft. Now, we do have some special opportunities in aerospace engineering, including design teams and study abroads, as well as labs. Our lab space, we have an open jet wind tunnel. We have a larger subsonic wind tunnel. that can project winds up to maybe 4 or 5 category level winds. And we actually had a weatherman come in here and get in our wind tunnel, Jim Cantori, and you can actually see his skin flapping back on his face and his little bald head. You can see everything. So it's pretty awesome. In our lab, we get to test a cylinder model in the wind tunnel, and we also have a flow visualization tunnel where you can see smoke flowing over any object that you want. So that's a lab that I'm in right now. That's really awesome. I've also done a co-op with G Aviation, which was really great. I got to apply some skills that I'd learned in class while I was on my co-op. I was working on the F-110, 129 engine, which goes on the F-15 and F-16. That was a really awesome opportunity because I lived in Cincinnati, and I was working with adults that were in the workforce and really learning from them. And I've worked with engineers who were on the engine for 30 years and above. I've also done a study abroad. Our study abroad program is a partnership between Airbus, HAAV Hamburg, which is in Germany, and Virginia Tech, Aerospace Engineering. So they make sure that we can get our credits when we go back, but we also get some technical experience because you can be involved in a research project with Airbus or a research project on your own, which is what I did. I did my study abroad last spring. It was really awesome. I got to explore Europe. Flights over there are really cheap, so I was learning about aerospace engineering. I took aircraft systems, aircraft design, and I also got to travel and experience another country, experience another language. So that was really awesome. Here at Tech, we have a lot of design teams as well. I'll just mention a couple. We have the 3D printed aircraft design team. We have Design Build Fly, which they go to a competition every year, and they're really big. We also take aerospace engineers on other design teams, but I'll stay away from those. We have a NASCA RASCAL team. So we have rocketry, plenty of rocketry to go around. So it's really awesome. You have plenty of opportunities in aerospace engineering here at Virginia Tech.
All right. So that's it for our brief video introduction to the department. Let's start out with a question for our panelists about what high school courses did you find to be particularly beneficial to you once you came to Virginia Tech as an engineer, and especially once you were in AOE? Do we have a panelist who could start us out?
I guess I could start it off. I think for me, easily was taking AP Calc in high school, mainly because, especially in engineering schools all around the country, calculus is usually like not really a weed out class, but it's harder to make sure that people who really want to do engineering are the ones that end up in it. So already having that credit coming into the school made it a lot easier for me to integrate into the school my freshman year. So I got to kind of bypass some of the struggles that a lot of my friends were facing at the time. So that's one class that I would recommend.
I'll add on to that. Raj is absolutely right. I would agree with him that calculus is the one thing that you have to have. I grew up in a very small high school. I graduated with about 130 students. So we didn't have nearly the curriculum opportunities that some students that go to larger schools had. The highest level of math I could take was just standard Calc 1 at my high school. However, a class like that, even though it's not an AP or it's not a more advanced calc, that was very important. Introductory physics also helped a little bit. I will say that, in my opinion, and everybody might have a different one, but I would say that physics here and physics in college is a lot different than a physics you would take in high school. It's just not quite the same thing, and it's kind of one of those things you just get thrown into the fire and have to experience it for yourself. But I would definitely agree with Raj on calculus, and if you're someone like me who didn't have the curriculum opportunities that other larger schools have, just try and take the highest level STEM classes that your school has to offer. Even if they're out of the way or you don't need them, I would still suggest going for them because they could give you a little taste of the rigor of engineering classes here.
Thanks to both of you for answering that question. Here's a question that kind of follows up on that a little bit. It's would you say the major is more math-based or science-based, or do you say they're kind of equal in terms of the need for them?
I would say it's a very large mixture. It kind of depends on the classes that you're taking. Definitely, Actually, they're probably more math-based once you get into your actual major classes, whether you're doing vehicle dynamics or anything, because you are using equations and deriving different things. But freshman year, when you're taking those introductory courses, it's really important to take chemistry and physics just to get those foundations.
Great, thank you. Here's a question, probably more for Raj. It's asking about what's it like double majoring in ocean and aerospace engineering? How much more rigorous is it than just doing one of the majors? And does it take more time to graduate?
Yeah, so in my case specifically, I'll be able to graduate on time with everyone else, with all my other peers, because I did come in with AP credit. But you don't specifically actually need that to graduate on time because the classes overlap so much. I think it's only around 6 to 7 extra classes that I have to take personally. And again, that varies between person to person based on what credits you come in with and what minors you're doing or things like that. But for me, that's what it is. It's very manageable. It's like an extra class a semester. So it's very doable if you're interested.
Great, thanks, Raj. I have another question here asking a little bit more about co-ops. It's asking specifically whether we have or whether students have done Raytheon or Rolls-Royce co-ops. I don't believe any of the four of you specifically have, but maybe you could speak a little bit more about the co-op opportunities that students in co-op and internship opportunities that students in AOE do have.
I can speak for experience for co-ops. I've done 2. I did one on the spring semester of my sophomore year, and then the spring semester technically. So I'll technically take 5 years to complete my major. When specifically asking about a specific company, and this could applied externally on my own, on that I was interested in working for. And if you get an offer from a place like that, like you'll have to do a normal interview. Every place is different. I interviewed and a webcam interview. The place that I did work, the National Aerospace Intelligence Center, I was actually able to meet with them in person because we're there about 30 minutes from where I live at home. And so I had an in-person interview with them. But I would say that once you get an internship opportunity or an offer, that's when you work with the cooperative education program here at Virginia Tech, and they will get you squared away to put you down as a student on a co-op, which means you still hold full-time student status while you're on a co-op, but you have a 0 credit load. So that's very beneficial because in the future, if you don't do that and an employer says, why do you have this gap in your education? You can say, oh, well, I was on co-op, or your transcript can just have cooperative education program like I did. So in my experience, you have to go out and to each individual company that you want to work for externally, just do it on your own. And then once you get an offer or have an opportunity, then you can work with the cooperative education program to get you squared away credit wise and like fundamentally that way.
And then if I can just piggyback onto that, I don't have any co-ops, but I have actually had a Raytheon internship and my GE Aviation internship. I worked with Rolls-Royce engines. So maybe I can speak to this a little bit. So freshman year was when I got my GE Aviation internship from Expo, which has been virtual the past couple of years, but the past year, but hopefully it'll come back. And essentially, you just walk into the booth and unlike Ian, I got all my stuff through the school. At Expo and things like that. So you just talk to them at the booth. If you guys get along and they think you're a good fit for the company and vice versa, they'll set you up with an interview and you can progress onward like that. It was actually a very fun experience, especially since I was like, a freshman going into sophomore year with an internship under my belt. So it was very exciting. I got to work on a whole bunch of engines like the 737 MAX engine and things like that. It's pretty cool. And then my Raytheon internship was last summer, and I'm actually going back this summer. And this was after the merger, so it was actually pretty cool getting like an inside glimpse into the formation of one of the biggest aero companies in the world, and seeing how it rocks the system and what happens inside, especially during the pandemic and everything else that was going on. So it is possible to get internships with those companies. And like Ian said, if the companies that you want aren't at Expo, then you can always go externally and get an internship as well. So
you can also go to different fairs within clubs. Like I'm a member of Society of Women Engineers. I got my first internship through that, and then my second internship is through a group specifically for my major for ocean engineers.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. I see we also have a question asking about what are some of the projects that we could get to experience. Maybe some of our panelists could speak to projects that you've worked on as part of design teams or as part of classes. Do I have maybe Nathan? I know you were part of a design team. Do you think you could speak a little bit about that?
So on design teams, there's just a lot of different projects ranging from rockets to design, build, fly was mentioned in the video. So rockets, planes, they have Baja teams, which you basically make and drive a vehicle on an off-road track. One of my friends, he is in that design team, and they have competitions every year that they have to go to. So there's basically a design team for many, many different things. There's an ocean one called, I think it's Human Powered Sub, which you basically just make.
I'm a member of that.
Yeah,
it's basically what the name is, but yeah.
that one's a good one. There's also projects you do in classes. So my other two aero engineers in here, they also did this for last year in the fall semester, the Intro to Aero class. There was a small design project that we had to do where we had to make a glider that would launch up a few meters into the air and glide back down, and the one that glided the longest won, basically. And I'm currently in a class called Booster Design, and we basically have to design a booster to get into different specified orbits with a set payload. So there's just a lot of different things a lot of different design teams and opportunities you can do, even if you don't decide to join a design team.
Great, thanks. Does anyone else want to speak to experiences you've had as part of design teams or other big projects that you've done as part of the department?
Just really quick, I'll just throw in that all these things it's a lot harder to get into freshman year, but you can. Like I actually had a research project freshman year where we were designing a rocket that would go up into the upper atmosphere and measure nitrogen levels, which was actually pretty cool. And unfortunately, I couldn't see the rocket launch, but to say I worked on a rocket that actually had scientific purpose was pretty fun. And so don't get discouraged just because you're younger. There are a lot of opportunities for people of all ages in college.
Yeah, research-wise, I've also worked with one of our professors. It's currently on hold because of COVID, but hopefully we can get back into that lab. But I'm also working on a new team that is working with MIT and the University of Barbados, and it is about kind of coral reef research and using underwater unmanned vehicles. So that's there's definitely opportunities elsewhere outside of design teams.
Great, thanks everyone. I've seen a couple questions asking about doing minors or how to pair a minor, possibly even in something that's not engineering specific, like business, with an engineering degree. If any of you could speak to doing minors, or if any of you have minors, it'd be great to hear more about that.
I can speak for a minor outside of engineering, actually. I'm taking 5 years currently, and because of some classes that I had to take over that I couldn't take over this summer because of COVID, but I am currently minoring in business and organizational leadership through Pamplin. And yes, there are very little there's actually no classes that overlap between Aero and that minor, but it's definitely possible to do it. You could potentially do it in 5 years. If you could potentially graduate in 5 years with a minor in Pamplin or in a College of Science minor, if you selected your classes very specifically so that you could still fulfill your pathways, fulfill your major requirements, and fulfill your minor requirements.
My minor is within the AOE department. I'm doing a naval engineering minor. And part of the AOE department is that you have to do some track electives. And my minor actually overlaps with one of the tracks. So I'm still graduating in my 4 years, but that's just because it is also within the department.
Great, thank you, both of you. And in my work as an advisor, I have seen students minor in a wide variety of subject areas. Computer science, green engineering is a popular one. We even see students who minor in things like other languages, music occasionally. So it is possible, but definitely the more that you're adding to a degree plan, kind of the more complicated your schedule can get. Looking at some other questions, I've seen a couple questions related to the curriculum. What kinds of courses are you taking as an aero or ocean student? And also, what are the differences between the aero and the ocean curriculum? Maybe we could get some answers for those.
Yeah, so I can just start this off very generally. A lot of the classes that I've experienced so far are academically rigorous, more so than hands-on, which was supposed to change this semester, where we're supposed to be in the lab for one of our classes, experimental methods. But unfortunately, because of COVID, it's very hard to go in and get the work done. So for me personally, it's still just a virtual class. And using remote control and working with lab partners that are going in. But then senior year is really when you get more hands-on work, specifically with senior design and projects like that. But so far it's been pretty academically rigorous. And as to the similarity between aero and ocean, and I'll let Catherine speak on this more, it's really exactly the same almost up until I think last semester, and even bits and pieces of this semester too, because it's just flowed through, moving through a flow, except in one case, water doesn't compress and air does compress. So, and Catherine, if you want to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think a large part of it, so like, I can just speak for like this semester and last semester. So like, we're actually we take different thermodynamics classes, for example. So for my thermodynamics, we focus on different fluids, but also marine propulsion. So that's just one example. I'm sure there's plenty more, but it's just how incompressible and compressible fluids act. But they are very similar.
Great, thank you. We have a couple questions related to space engineering track. I know Raven mentioned that the space engineering track in her video. Maybe some of you could speak to our tracks and track electives a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm actually in the space track for Aero, and essentially the way tracks work, at least from what I've seen, is it's 3 classes that you have to take from a set list of classes that are geared towards that track. So like for me, it'll be 3 space-related classes. And then once you do those, you kind of have like a basic foundation of that region of the degree. So you can say that, you've specified your degree into that track. So for me, one of my classes I took was like the space environment is what it was called. And essentially it was just like how the sun affects the solar system, through magnetic flares and things like that. And pretty cool stuff like that. Not stuff you would touch in a normal degree unless you were specifically doing a space track. So, and that applies to all sorts of different tracks too. Like green engineering is a track now, I believe. There's some sort of green track. And then there's also like systems and controls and many things like that. So.
Great, thank you. We had a couple questions asking about study abroad. I don't think any of our current panelists have studied abroad. I know Raven had and talked about that in her video. I can say that one question was asking if you needed to speak German to do our study abroad program in Germany. You do not. That program is taught in English during the semester in which our students study there. I also saw a question about whether you could study abroad at other institutions. We have had students go to other places, for example, Australia. I know we've had students who have done a semester at sea. So there are ways to make that work. Sometimes, and in fact, frequently, adding something like study abroad does lead to extended time to graduation, though. I see a question about drone technology. Do any of you work with drones, or is that a part of your curriculum or design teams?
If anybody else has a better answer than this, feel free to speak up. But I'm not personally associated with any drone teams or anything like that. However, freshman year, you're considered a general engineer, and at the end of your second engineering, fundamentals of engineering, you'll have a project. In that case, my project was a type of drone that we made out of cardstock, and we had a small prop engine in the front. And here at Virginia Tech, we have a drone cage, which is I don't know the dimensions, but it is probably around, I'd say, 75 to 100 yards long, maybe probably 20, 30 feet high. The big massive area where you can fly drones. I don't know if you can do that recreationally, but it's definitely there for projects or design teams or undergraduate research that has to do with drones.
I'm seeing a question about just general recommendations for incoming students. So I'm wondering if our panelists can just provide some, general tips for incoming engineering students or students who are interested in the department, things that will help them be better prepared or make them successful as engineering students here.
Yeah, so I think, especially in light of current events, you definitely want to work hard your freshman year and get as high of a GPA as possible, not only to get into the major you want, which Aero is a very competitive one to get into, meaning if you don't have the minimum GPA, you most likely won't get in. But especially since, you never know when there's going to be a global pandemic and school is going to shut down and, your grades are going to suffer because you're virtual. So it's really nice to have the extra padding in your GPA from freshman year and sophomore year. So you don't have to take you still take classes seriously, but it's not hit or miss for you on whether or not you'll graduate. So.
And I'm going to piggyback off Raj there as well. Not only freshman year is that important, but I would also say that for your junior and senior year of high school as well. The program itself is competitive to get into at all. So you're going to want to have a high GPA in high school. You're going to want to have good SAT or ACT scores, but you also want to be very well rounded. Have NHS under your belt, or have student council under your belt, or just be a student that doesn't all they do is grades and they don't do anything else. Team sports is huge. They may say that the stigma is that engineers aren't very social, but you have to be. All your projects are group projects. You have to know how to work with people. You have to know how to collaborate and delegate and share workloads. So that's very important, which things like sports or student council or clubs in school, that's very helpful for. So be a well-rounded student in high school and learn to study. That was the biggest thing. In high school, I didn't study much. I didn't have to. When I got here, I didn't know how to study. And that kind of bit me in the butt early freshman year as my first few tests came around and I did not know how to study for them. So even if you don't have to study, try learning how. Ask people that that are in college, ask people that that take tough classes in high school, maybe APs or something like that, and say, well, how do you study? What works for you? And what works for you may not work for your friend and vice versa. So you just have to find your own way to study. And that would probably be my biggest piece of advice is learn how to study.
Great, Ian. Thank you so much. I see a question asking about the types of classes that you're taking as a student in AOE, whether they're more lecture-based or discussion-based. Maybe one or two of you could speak to some of the kinds of classes or the variety of classes that you've taken while here.
Mainly it's, I would say 80%, 70-80% is lecture-based until we get to like lab-based classes, like the class I'm in right now, experimental methods. We actually form and carry out experiments of our own to meet certain objectives. And that's very obviously discussion-based because we have to work with our team and orchestrate things that way. And it's very hands-off from the professor in that as long as we submit an experiment that's scientifically sound and we carry it out properly, then that's where our grade comes from. So we're not explicitly taught much in that class, more so about how to use the equipment that we're given. And then after that, it's all hands-off and we get to do it on our own.
Catherine, maybe you could say a little bit about ocean engineering?
Yeah, I think that it's really unique. It's a really great experience. I actually came to Virginia Tech for the major. So kind of going into it, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. It is different than naval architecture, if you are familiar with that as well. Naval architecture kind of focuses on the design and like kind of aesthetics type of view. But our ocean engineering classes are very based on the systems that go into different ships, vessels, submarines. And then we also take different structures classes that deal with hull performance, as well as anything you can think of. We take electrical classes that they have some examples related to like submarines. I really enjoy it just because it is something very unique. There's not a lot of us. our classes are pretty small. We all kind of know each other. But it's also just a really great community to be in, and all the professors are very well rounded and they have some great experience under their belts.
Great. Thanks, Catherine. I know often students, one thing that's unique about our department is because we have the two majors, it is possible to do a double major in both. Raj, maybe you could speak a little bit about what it's like to be a double major?
Yeah, for sure. Just really quick, just to make it explicit, ocean engineering is its own major, so you don't have to do it like in tandem with aero or like as a minor with aero. Just to make that clear. But then
I don't do things that fly. So.
Yeah, so for me, I am a double major, and the way it works out with my schedule is it's only about 6 extra classes that I have to take, so I can finish both degrees in 4 years, and I don't have to spend any extra time, and it works out to basically about 1 extra class a semester after freshman year. So it's very doable if your schedule permits it, and obviously I won't be able to go do like, a business minor or something like that on top of that without pushing my graduation date further back. But yeah, it's a good time. It gets very stressful sometimes, but it's worth it in the end. So
great, thanks. I see a question here asking about co-ops and internships. I know we have students on our panel today who have done both of those. So would someone like to start us out speaking about those experiences?
Sure. So I've done a co-op. I've actually done 2 co-ops with the same place. I work for the National Air and Space Intelligence Center in Dayton, Ohio, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And fortunately, I can't go into a ton of detail about what I've really done there, but basically, we do aircraft performance intelligence. So bottom line, we take bad guys' airplanes, see how they fly, how fast, how far, what weapons, etc., compare them to our own, and give judgment on that. I really like the co-op experience. If you are somebody that doesn't care to graduate, if you don't have to graduate in 4 years, or you think, yeah, I could take the time to take a semester off of classes to go out and get a co-op, I would highly recommend it. It can be a burden financially, if say maybe you don't have the money to go back-to-back semesters. Well, that's kind of what was the boat I was in. I didn't really have the funds to go back-to-back semesters just to graduate in 4 years. So a co-op, not only did I get the co-op, the experience, the job experience, now I have about 14 months under my belt between the two, but each semester I worked and earned money to help me pay for school. So financially, not only for the experience, but financially it was also really beneficial. So like I said, if you have the time and the and you're not so worried about graduating in 4 years, I'd highly recommend co-ops because especially in your early years, not to diss any of our coursework or anything, but I think I probably learned more in that 7 months of co-op than my entire first 2 years at college. Not that you don't learn a lot at college, but the work experience is just something totally different, and you just learn absolutely so much.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit on internships. I've only had one. I know Raj has had 2 prior. So he can probably elaborate more. But I had an internship with Northrop Grumman, working for their undersea systems in Annapolis, Maryland. I, again, can't really say much about what I did, but I worked on redesigning some submarines, putting some stuff on there. But that was really awesome. I really learned a lot. I got to work with some of the most respected engines within a branch. But I'm also doing a internship in person this summer in Wisconsin, building the new class of destroyers for the U.S. Navy. So there's plenty of opportunities here at Tech.
And then we've added a little bit of air and water, so I guess I'll talk on the space side a little bit. My last internship was with Raytheon right after the merger, and I was actually working on missile defense satellites. So I can't talk about that again as much, but I can talk more towards. I also took kind of like a not really a management position, but I was assigned a leadership position amongst the other interns and even some full-grown engineers that were on my team to help design a couple of databases and get work started on a new weather satellite that Raytheon was trying to build for a contract. So again, while not explicitly in tandem with the coursework that I have currently, not much thermodynamics goes into managing a group of people, but it was really great. It gave me a well-rounded experience, and I'm actually going back there next summer too. So, yeah.
I see we've had a couple questions about just student organizations in general. I think maybe some of you could speak to your involvement in some organizations, both within engineering and even outside organizations?
I'm in like a bunch. I'm kind of everywhere. I like to get myself really involved and really busy. So that explains what I'm about to list off. So I'm really involved in the Society of Women Engineers here at Virginia Tech. I'm actually going to be serving as their vice president for next year. I'm also in the Society of Naval Architects and Marine Engineers. I serve a leadership position as well there. They're really awesome. I know Aerospace, I'm sure someone wrote it, the AIAA, which is their organization. SNAME is the ocean engineering one. I'm also really involved in intramurals here at Tech. I've played inter-tube water polo for 2 years, and I'm playing tennis for this spring, so I'm very excited. But I really just like to be around campus. You can get involved in anything. It's very easy to get involved in literally everything and anything you want.
All right, thank you. And yes, there certainly are, there's certainly lots of organizations here. There are big events every fall and spring. Gobbler Connect is a great way to get connected to all sorts of things all over campus. Didn't see a question here, but we've had questions before about undergrad research. Do any of our current panelists have experience doing research as part of the department?
Yeah, so I actually had a research opportunity my freshman year, so my first year, and I actually got to design and build a rocket that would fly into the upper atmosphere and take nitrogen level readings in the atmosphere. It had to do with global warming and pollution, things like that. But I wasn't too interested on that, more just building the rocket. But it was actually very fun, and I just want to share that just to show that you can get into research opportunities and really, really cool things as a freshman and even as a sophomore. Most opportunities will be available to you when you get into a couple of higher years, just because then you have some of the in-major classes you need to adequately perform your job. But it is very doable at any year in college, as long as you talk to everyone you can and try to get involved as much as you can. So
my undergraduate research experience isn't nearly as cool as Raj's, but I'm currently a research assistant working with the Virginia Tech Airworthiness Center. Basically, we're doing background research on former high-performance aircraft for Naval Air Systems Command, NAVAIR. Basically, they're looking for information about incidences and crashes and malfunctions because these aircraft may be used by companies or private organizations that may have contracts with the Navy. So they want to make sure that the people that they're working with have aircraft that are safe. And so we're basically doing background research and putting together presentations on, hey, this is the aircraft you want us to work on. Here's how many crashes. Here's what's going on. It's more of a traditional background research, right up my alley with what I've done for my co-ops, doing background research on aircraft and things like that. So not all research necessarily is as hands-on as Raj's, which might sound a lot more interesting. I think it's a little more interesting, but it is kind of cool to, from my perspective, have something that you, especially now with COVID, I can do all of this at home. I can do all of this, just on the open web, put together presentations, things like that. So hopefully this whole COVID thing won't go on any longer, but if that's something you're worried about, that works too. So there's a lot of opportunities that may not necessarily be hands-on if that's not what you're into, but that was my experience.
And also just piggybacking off something you just said, Ian, 80% of what I did was actually MATLAB because we had to calculate the trajectory and everything like that. So it's just running, first making code and then running it thousands of times to get an ideal trajectory and when to launch. And then maybe the last 20%, even 10% was the actual hands-on stuff. So even the cool hands-on projects aren't actually even all hands-on. You have to be behind a computer for most of almost everything you do. So
I know we're basically out of time, but I just want to add in, I had a research opportunity as well with one of our professors. And it was one of those fun hands-on type of things. We didn't get to the coding or any of that yet, just because of COVID. But we were building a wave generator and then using the waves that we generated to power a vessel to create its own energy. But that was all hands-on. We were 3D printing. We were kind of designing parts and kind of figuring out what works. So there's plenty of those opportunities.
Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists. We are actually out of time for this webinar, but we really are glad that all of our attendees came to join us this evening. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.